Amateur Traveler is in its 20th year now, but can you imagine if I had people on the show who had never been to the destination but had just read about it or seen a movie about it? That wouldn't make any sense at all, and you wouldn't listen. We all know how important it is to receive advice from people who know a destination to get the most authentic local experience. And a great option for experiencing this is Explore Worldwide and their authentic small group adventures, led by local tour leaders, perfect for solo travelers who want to meet like minded people with a desire for adventure. I'm often an independent traveler, but two of my last three trips were with small group tours because they organize everything and it's a lot easier. If you want to recreate the tour I did to Malta, they have a Malta and Gozo Discovery Tour. I'm intrigued by one of their tours called A Taste of Sicily. The company again is Explore Worldwide, and visit exploreworldwide.com to learn more. And thanks to Explore Worldwide for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler. The nights are long, the days are short, and the weather is chilly to downright cold, depending on where you are. It's a good time to slip into a Quince iconic Mongolian cashmere sweaters, which start at only $50. You can treat yourself to everyday luxury at an affordable price with Quince. If you really want to dive into luxury, you can check out their leather handbags, washable silk shirts, and European linen sheet sets. Whatever you're looking for at Quince, all the prices are 50 to 80% less than similar brands, and they do that by partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the middleman. They only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing processes. And of course, they use premium fabrics and finishes for that luxury feel in every piece. But you've already heard me rave about my Quince travel pants. Treat yourself this winter without the luxury price tag. Go to quince.com/traveler for 365-day returns plus free shipping on your order. That's QUINCE.com/traveler to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/traveler. And thanks to Quince for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler.
Got my bags packed, I'm on a roll. I'm heading out there and I'm ready to go. I'm looking real good in my passport photo. Oh, no.
Amateur Traveler, episode 314. Today, the Amateur Traveler talks about beaches and steel drums and carnival as we go to Trinidad and Tobago.
Got to sit in one more cafe. I know that I should be heading home, but maybe not today.
Welcome to the Amateur Traveler. I'm your host, Chris Christensen. Before we get into this week's interview, I do have 3 news stories for you. You know how frustrating it is when you're in the parking lot and you hit a light pole and you have to decide whether or not to report it to your car insurance? Well, I'm not sure that they have the same problem when it's an airplane rather than a car. Southwest Flight 792 had just landed from Los Angeles at the Denver airport when it ran into a light pole. I'm surprised they even have light poles that close to the runways. But that's not nearly the problem that thousands of passengers had who flew Span Air, because that airline stranded 20,000 passengers because they shut down. They ran out of financing options, and the Barcelona-based airline ceased operations and canceled 647 flights. If you had a trip booked on them, good luck with that. They're working out details to try and get refunds to people who had tickets and had yet to travel. And then, speaking of people who won't have to worry about that, there were some British friends who claimed they've been banned from entering the United States because they tweeted jokes about, quote, destroying America. And their tweets were picked up by the country's anti-terrorism police. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that when you're going to travel to a country, tweeting with those sort of phrases is along the lines of joking about bombs in the security line at the airport. Just don't do it. For links to all 3 of those stories, check out the show notes at amateurtraveler.com. I'd like to welcome to the show J.D. Andrews, who's coming to us from earthexplorer.com and come to talk to us about Trinidad and Tobago. J.D., welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks.
J.D. has been on This Week in Travel before, but it's your first time on Amateur Traveler. You were down in Trinidad and Tobago on a press tour, as I understand.
Yes, I was. I was down in Trinidad and Tobago with a couple of people, Johnny Jett, Steve from Uncommon Caribbean, Eric from Four Doors, borders, and Lily was there representing Peter Greenberg.
Excellent. So, assuming someone doesn't give us a free trip to Trinidad and Tobago, why should we go? First of all, let's put it on a map. Not everybody may recognize those places, but we're in the southern Caribbean, close to South America.
Yeah, it's about as southern Caribbean as you can get. I think it's 7 miles away from Venezuela.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really far down there. And of course, because it's far down there, they don't have the problem with the hurricanes. And I guess they don't have as bad of weather. But it's still very warm and it's beautiful. And I've been to a lot of Caribbean islands. I used to work for a cruise line, and I used to go around the Caribbean for years and years. And the reason why I wanted to go on this trip is I've never been to Trinidad and Tobago. And I've had friends from there, and I've had people tell me about it. So I was really excited to go.
And you say very warm. We're far enough south that we're in the tropics, literally.
Yeah, I was really surprised how warm it was. I mean, it was probably in the 90s.
And what did you see while you were there? Now, first of all, Trinidad and Tobago, 2 different islands.
Yes, and it's interesting. You say Tobago, I say Tobago.
Let's call the whole thing off, yeah.
Exactly. So I'm not exactly positive how to say it, but I'll just keep calling it Tobago and you call it Tobago. But yes, it is 2 separate islands. The main island is Trinidad, and that's where the capital is. It's a big city. It's the Port of Spain is their capital, and that's where almost everything happens. And then Tobago is a very, very Caribbean-y island, because they don't have any of that stuff on there. They're just there hanging out. They have cool restaurants and hotels, and it's a beachy place. Like you go there for the beach and the relaxation. Trinidad is more of a busy city, so you don't have as much of that.
Okay.
And just real quick, I'll throw that in. I'm sure anybody that's familiar with the Caribbean, the most famous thing about Trinidad is their carnival, which is supposedly the best in the Caribbean. Of course, when you're there, they'll definitely tell you it's the best in the Caribbean. And they said it's Brazil's the number 1 and they're number 2. And man, they take it really, really seriously. When we were there, they everybody in the whole island is getting ready for it, where they have the steel drum bands, the people that wear the wild outfits. I mean, they are real serious about it. And it's so far as they were showing people working out, and they said those people work out for 2 months out of the year just for Carnival, and then the rest of the year you never see them. So it's serious.
Interesting. It seems really strange to think about people working out for Carnival, but okay.
Well, if you see the costumes, we actually went to one of the places that makes the costumes, and if you think of like showgirl on stage in a Vegas act, and then bring the suit down just a few more sizes, and that's what the costumes look like. I mean, it's pretty extreme with feathers and glitter and shiny things on, like a micro bikini. I mean, it's pretty wild. And when we went there to see the different costumes, we were talking to the people, and they said that they go anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000 on up.
Dollars for the costume.
Yes. And I was like, wow, that's a lot of money. And I asked, so if you buy one, then you can wear it every year, right? And they said, oh, no, you can't do that. I mean, you buy one, you wear it for that carnival, and then the next one, you get another one.
Oh, my goodness.
So I said, wow, that's a big budget item. And then when Carnival's over, what do you do with them? And they said some people just keep them in their closet, or they might they keep just the hat or the thing they have on their head. So, it's big business there.
Wow, we thought the bridesmaid's dress that you couldn't use twice was an extravagant expense.
Yeah, you might be able to wear it on your honeymoon, I think, but Carnival and honeymoon, I can't imagine any other place you could wear these, though.
Now, you were down there in what time of year?
I was just there 3 weeks ago.
Okay. As you said, them getting ready for Carnival, so I thought we were talking about a recent trip here. And
well, actually, Carnival is February 20th and the 21st.
This year, right?
So they're all getting ready right now.
And then did you get any idea from, you were dealing with the tourism people, what is their most popular time of the year? Carnival?
That is it.
Okay.
Carnival, hands down. Yeah, they said the population, triples. Every hotel is sold out. It's pretty much just a huge party for a week. And it's funny, when I thought about it, it's really kind of interesting, because if you have the holiday blues, because nowadays Christmas and the holidays all start in October, you see all the decorations, you go through all the Christmas and all the festivities, and then everybody kind of gets this post-holiday blues. But in Trinidad, you don't, because as soon as Christmas is over, you got to get ready for Carnival. So I think it's a neat way to not worry about the post-holiday blues because you got to get ready for another party.
Excellent. And what else did you see on Trinidad that would recommend it as a destination?
Well, actually, I found some really interesting things about Trinidad because one thing that was really interesting, we didn't see it, but I just found it very fascinating, is it's huge in oil and natural gas, which I had no idea. And it's one of the wealthiest countries in the Caribbean due to all the oil and gas. And I guess it has a lot to do with its proximity because it's next to Venezuela, who's known for that as well.
Right, sure.
And they export almost all of it to the U.S., which I never knew. I thought that was pretty fascinating. And other things that we saw there was the steel drums. Of course, Trinidad, because of the oil back in the old days, I don't know what, before they didn't have any musical instruments. So they had all these 55-gallon oil drums laying around. So they would take them, saw them in half, and then they started making musical instruments out of them. So actually, Trinidad is where they invented this steel drum, and they call it the steel pan down there.
I did not know that. I would have guessed Jamaica if you'd tried to pin me down.
Exactly. And it's funny because every Caribbean island I've ever been to, they say they are the inventors of it, but it really makes sense. And I did a little research, and it is actually Trinidad that started it. They have these groups that are actually in Carnival that are 3 to 5 to 800 people all playing the steel drums at the same time during the Carnival, playing the same thing. And we got to go see a rehearsal, which was really interesting. So where all these people go and rehearse, it's called a steel pan yard. And I would suggest anybody, if they go to Trinidad, to definitely go see one of those because it's just really fascinating to see. Because you always see them, if you've ever been to a Caribbean island, you see 1 or 2 guys playing, but you've never seen a whole group of everyone playing from 1 to 5 around them at the same time. It's really amazing.
Okay. What surprised you about Trinidad?
Well, this will surprise you, and as well as it surprised me, is while we were there, we went on an actual tour of a rum factory. That part's not surprising. Every Caribbean island has a rum factory. What was interesting about it, it's called the Angostura, Angostura, and they make a lot of rums and everything. But also, the way they started was they're the first company in the world and the only company to make bitters.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Which, I was a bartender back in college. Every single bar I've ever been to, or probably every one in the world, has a bottle of bitters behind the bar. Never in a million years ever thought about where it came from or who made it. And actually, there was a guy that gathered all the ingredients. He was a German doctor in Venezuela, came to Trinidad, and started producing it out of all these things different herbs and spices, and he made bitters. And ever since then, since 1824 to now, this is the only place in the world that makes the original bitters. There's no other manufacturer ever or anywhere else. I mean, there's other companies that tried to make bitters, but not the original recipe and still going today, which really fascinated me.
And you say that a doctor started it. Of course, that one of the reasons for that is that it has quinine, so it's useful in preventing malaria.
Well, if you read the label, which is very interesting, it says it cures almost everything. I mean, it just goes on and on and on, and it's good for this and good for that. And originally, that's why he did make it, was to be a medicinal, for medicinal purposes. And now, you can find it in every bar, and it goes in lots of cocktails. But even when I was a bartender, if someone came in and they had an upset stomach, we'd always make soda and bitters. That was the remedy.
Yeah, it's the same reason the British in the colonies had gin and tonic, the tonic also being a quinine drink.
Yeah, see, I didn't know that. I mean, I just thought that was really interesting that that's the place where they invented bitters.
Did not know that.
Yeah, see, you learn a little on these trips. This is a bonus question, and I didn't know this either. Nicki Minaj was born in Trinidad.
Nicki Minaj, no, I am not recognizing that name.
Yeah, well, that's because we're about the same age. She's I don't know what you would call, she's like the Lady Gaga of, I don't know, like hip-hop, I guess you'd say.
Okay.
Because we kept asking, who's from Trinidad, and they named all these, people that would play football and soccer or, running in the Olympics, and we kind of didn't know anybody. Then they said, oh, yeah, by the way, Nicki Minaj is from here. So we said, okay, well, at least we've heard of her. So that was a big one.
Okay. And now, as they're trying to show off what you should see in Trinidad, what are they showing you? What else are they particularly proud of?
Well, of course, the costumes were a big one. And then we went to one of their beaches, one of the most famous beaches in Trinidad called Maracas Beach. It's a beautiful beach, and there's a lot of people there. It's gorgeous. And what was funny about it, especially for us, is they had free Wi-Fi. So, first of all, you're on a beautiful beach. You have free Wi-Fi. I'm like, this is pretty much the best thing ever. And then across the street, they have all these little shacks where you can get food. And the big thing there is shark and bake. And let me say it again. It's shark and, A-N-D, bake, B-A-K-E.
Okay.
First time I heard them say it, I thought they said shark and bacon. And I said, wow, that sounds great. Anything with bacon. But it's actually shark and bake. And there was a guy there named Richard that started it. You fry up shark, and they put it in some bread, and they have all kinds of condiments. Of course, hot sauce. Trinidad's very known for their hot sauces. And that's what you have for lunch. So we went over there, had that, had great Wi-Fi, and a beautiful beach day on Maracas Beach. So that's one of the things you definitely have to go see.
Okay.
Another place we went to was the Caroni, I believe it's C-A-R-O-N-I, Bird Sanctuary. And when I first saw this, I was like, oh, yippee, going to a bird sanctuary. How much fun could this be? Because I like birds like everybody else, but that just doesn't do it for me. So we got in a boat, we sailed around the mangroves, we saw lizards and fish, and that's pretty much what I see in my backyard here in Miami. But then we kept going, and we saw some snakes in the trees, so it got a little more exciting. And then we saw some four-eyed fish, and then I'm thinking Simpsons, it's getting a little more fun. And then finally we got to this big opening where the river came into almost, I guess, a big lake. And we stopped, and there was a big island of mangroves. And we're just sitting there, and, we're wondering what's going on. And then all of a sudden, all these ibis start flying in. So they have white ibis, and they have blue ibis, and they're famous for scarlet ibis, which I've never seen in my life, is just bright red ibis. And they all start flying in, and it looks like they're on a landing approach as they get in. They all fly on one side, then some others come from the other side, and they all land in this one area on this island. And you think, oh, well, wow, that's a lot of birds. But it doesn't stop. It went on for probably 35, 40 minutes, right at sunset. And all these birds, they tell us, go over to Venezuela during the day to feed and to do, I don't know what they're doing over there. But at sunset, they all fly back to their home. And this is where they roost, is these mangroves right in this area. And it was unbelievable just to see that. So, even not being a huge bird lover, that was one thing that I really, really enjoyed seeing. Just seeing this huge island, beautiful green mangrove with the red and white, just really vivid. Because, I've never seen that red of a bird before, especially a big ibis like that. So I would definitely recommend that.
Okay. And around sunset, it sounds like, was the time to go.
Yeah, I guess every day at sunset, they all fly back from Venezuela. We had two conflicting stories. Somebody told us that they are in Venezuela, they fly back, and then someone else told us, no, they're just flying around the area, and then they fly back there to roost. So I like the Venezuela story, so I'm going to go with that one.
All right.
Actually, that's all we had time for on Trinidad. So we did make our way over to Tobago, and like I said, it's a very relaxed island. It is just an island. Like, there's beaches everywhere. It's very nice. And we had dinner over there, and then we got to stay in this beautiful villa, which overlooked the ocean, had a pool. So we kind of felt like we were on the real world travel blogger style. And then we got on a boat and got a tour of the island on a boat, which was really nice. We pulled up to a few different beaches, gorgeous beaches, and a few different inlets where we could go snorkeling. And I have to tell you, I've been to a lot of Caribbean islands, and I've done a lot of snorkeling, but this was probably the best snorkeling off the boat I've ever done in my life. There was just tons of fish everywhere, all different colors, all different sizes. We saw barracuda, and I was asking, why is there so many fish here? Because a lot of times, like if you're in Grand Cayman, there's a lot of stingrays because that's where they, used to throw their fish overboard. There's a reason why they're all there.
Right.
And he said that's the way the ocean is. It's because there's no way to get here on land. The only way you can get here is by boat. So there's not a lot of people here. So that's where the fish are. So it was really neat to actually go snorkeling. That was because another thing, when I see snorkeling on there, I think, oh, that's another thing. But in Tobago, it was definitely a must see. Then we went over to a beautiful beach and had a barbecue on the beach. And then they actually have a sandbar there where you get off and you're probably in about waist deep water in the middle of the ocean. And they have a saying there, I don't know if I can say it on here, but if the women stand there, they get 10 years off their age. And if men stand there, they get 5 inches somewhere. So I don't know. This is G-rated, so you can edit that. But that's what they say, I guess, to get people there. And then they say if couples kiss under the water on the sandbar, they stay together forever. So that was just really neat. I mean, as soon as the sun started going down, the same thing. Tons of people would come out there, and it's kind of like a party every sunset. Everybody hangs out on the sandbar in Tobago.
Now, you've been all around the Caribbean. So even though you haven't been to Trinidad for a long period of time, what island does it remind you of? I mean, when you first got off the plane and you went into the capital city there, where did you feel like you were?
Well, you know what? This is what was really interesting because, as you said, I've been to a lot of Caribbean islands, and a lot of them that I go to, it does feel like, oh, well, that kind of feels like this island. This one didn't, and this is what really surprised me because it is such a large city, and maybe because it is one of the richest Caribbean islands, it just didn't have that same feel to it. And maybe it's because it's so far south. Even their food was completely different. Like the shark and bake that I mentioned earlier, they have all kinds of different kinds of foods that you won't find anywhere else in the Caribbean. I mean, if you go to the Bahamas, you go to St. Thomas or Grand Cayman, they all have conch fritters.
Sure. Well, that's what I expected you to say when you were eating at the beach was I was going to guess conch fritters.
Yeah. I mean, that's what's so interesting is these places have so many different kinds of food. And I've never seen it anywhere else except for here. And also, I noticed the people, and, you know, we were only there for a while, but it just seemed like the people were, and I'm not saying the other Caribbean are not nice, it just seemed like they just were a little bit nicer here. I don't know if it was just where we were or who we were with, but it just seemed like they were really accommodating. And maybe it goes back to, like I said, when you go to St. Thomas or one of those islands that get the cruise ships of 3,000 people per day, or each ship has 3,000 people, so they get inundated with tourists. Maybe they're not as friendly to those people. And Trinidad doesn't get all those tourists, so maybe they just were a little bit nicer. And it was really pleasurable, too. They were really, really nice to us. So we had a lot of fun.
And you said as you were in Port of Spain that it didn't remind you of any place else. What about it was different? What about it looked different, for instance?
Well, you can definitely tell that they have money. And maybe it's just the area we were at. I mean, I'm not saying that Trinidad is all gold and marble, but the area we were around, you know, they had high-rise hotels. Our hotel was beautiful. We stayed at the Hyatt Trinidad. And you could look over and see there's a few other hotels that just looked very nice. They have a huge convention center where the port was. They, you know, had really nicely bricked, and they had a cool water fountain. And it just looked clean, because there's a lot of other Caribbean islands that have those things, that have that, but they just don't seem as new maybe or as clean. It felt like a city that everybody was proud of. And just like the people that I've known from Trinidad and Tobago before I even went there, they just were very proud of being from there, and they call themselves Trinis. You just kind of felt that. Like I said, the other islands, you just kind of don't feel that. It's just, oh, here comes another tourist, you know, what do you want? Buy some of my crap and then leave me alone. But we just didn't feel that way here. They're very proud of their heritage. They're very proud of their food. They want to share everything. They're very proud of Carnival. I mean, you couldn't meet somebody without them telling you a Carnival story or having them tell you about what they're going to do this year for Carnival, what they're going to wear. I mean, it was really neat how it just seemed like the whole country was very excited. Maybe it's because of Carnival.
And we should point out again that a lot of your experience in the Caribbean was just getting off the cruise ship, since you were working for a cruise ship company. So that could have influenced how you're seeing things.
That is definitely true, yes. I mean, and to be fair, I've gone back to the Caribbean and sailed around the Caribbean islands and did it that way when I just...
On a bareboat?
Yeah, and on a sailboat. And it was definitely a different experience.
Sure, yeah.
I definitely am not trying to bring down the Caribbean at all. I mean, I really like the Caribbean. It's just had a different feel to it.
Language, predominantly Spanish.
Actually, surprisingly, everyone English.
Oh, okay. All right.
And I thought the same thing.
With the history, I thought it was going to be Spanish.
I did too. When I got there, I was like, oh, I'm going to brush up on my Spanish. I mean, more people speak Spanish in Miami than they did in Trinidad. Nobody nobody that we even ran into or I even overheard spoke Spanish.
Interesting.
And they said there are some people that speak Spanish, but 90% of everyone speaks English. So I did too. I thought that was very interesting.
Any warnings you would give about Trinidad? You should know before you go that what?
Like I said, just because of our situation, I guess we weren't warned of anything, or I didn't look into it. But I guess the one tour guide said he took us to one part of town where we did see some guys on steel drums just to show us how they play, and we got to grab the sticks and play some. And he said this neighborhood, a lot of tourist places say don't go to. And it didn't seem bad or anything, but you never know. So I guess I would just...
Port of Spain is a big city, so treat it like a big city. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, every city has its bad places, so just find out where those are and don't go there. But we never felt threatened or anything the whole time we were there. And it's funny, I wish I was more of a food travel blogger because there was so much interesting food here. Just thinking about that, when we were traveling around, our guide said, okay, we have to go to the top of the mountain because they have this soup there. And we thought, oh, it's going to be a restaurant. We're going to check it out. So we got up to the top, and it's pretty much just a place where you turn off, and they have a really nice view of the city, which was great. So we got some great pictures at night. And there was a lady there that had a huge, I would call it a cauldron almost. It's just this huge thing of soup. And it was corn soup, which I'm not a huge fan, but they put it in a bowl for us. And inside the soup, they had chunks of corn on the cob in the soup. And it was fantastic. And that's what is interesting. They just had so many different kinds of food. And they said, that's one of their foods is this corn soup. And I don't know, I mean, when you go there, you definitely have to really get in and go to all the different places and try all their different food because they have so many different varieties, but so many different things. That was one of the things that really stood out because a lot of the Caribbean islands, they're not known for their food. They're known for conch fritters or their fish, just like every other Caribbean island. But this island had a lot of very distinctive items that's just known from Trinidad.
Okay. Who's the most memorable person you met, local?
Probably our driver. He was a great guy. His name was Andrew, and he drove us all around. And anybody that's traveled always has that person they meet that knows everything, and you can ask them anything, and they might be telling you a lie, but they're so you believe them because they're so passionate about it. And that's the way he was. He was great. And every time we had a question, he would answer it. And he's the one that took us to all the local places. And that's what he's known for. He actually works with the tourism board because so many people are coming to the island and saying, I don't really want to do all the touristy things. I want to go and see where the locals eat and really have that local experience. And that's what he does. So it was really cool to hang out with him, find out more about history and the food.
Okay. Anything particularly stand out that he was telling you about in terms of the history?
Well, just that, I mean, the steel drums was a big one. Mm-hmm. He also mentioned that they invented limbo.
Okay.
And I was like, okay. And he told us that they have a lot of cocoa there. And they harvest it and they send it to Great Britain. And that's where the chocolate for Cadbury is coming from.
Interesting.
Another thing I didn't know. I mean, it was very interesting how just one thing after another of things I didn't know. I had no idea about Trinidad. And another thing he just told us about was that their prime minister was just elected, and it's a woman. It's the first woman to be prime minister of Trinidad. And, I was surprised because I don't know of any other Caribbean island that has a prime minister or someone of that power that's a woman. And one thing he did tell us, which was very cool, was this year, for 2012, they won the World's Best Tourism Destination Award and the World's Favorite Cultural Destination Award.
And I'm assuming that wasn't from an award given out by the Trinidad Chamber of Commerce or something like that.
That would be a good one. No, they actually won it here. Let's see. It says from the European Union Council on Tourism and Trade. So
interesting.
That was a very big deal. Yeah. So they're having a great year.
As we start to wrap this up, one thing that makes you laugh and say only in Trinidad.
Well, the costumes.
Okay. Because
I actually went to Antigua about 3 or 4 years ago, or maybe longer than that, and shot their carnival.
Shot as in JD does videos.
Yeah, sorry. Let's clarify.
We should point this out here because not everybody has been to your site or seen your show. So
I've been doing travel-related video production for about 20 years. And I was hired by the Antigua Tourism Board to go and shoot their island and make a tourism video. And I actually shot their carnival while I was there. And it was nice. It was definitely nice. I've never been to a Caribbean carnival before. It was great. But then hearing about Trinidad and how long it is and what they wear and the pictures and everything, I mean, I'm never going to hear the word Trinidad anymore without thinking of carnival and thinking of those costumes. I wish I had the people in the costumes pictures, but I don't. But there are pictures of the mannequins wearing the costumes, and you can get the idea and you can let your imagination wander. But they are some amazing costumes.
Excellent. Before I get to my last two questions, anything else that people should know before they go to Trinidad?
Just make sure you bring sunscreen like you would with any place else. I got very sunburned, and I don't get sunburned very easily. And like I said, it was very hot, so definitely bring sunscreen. If you like spicy and hot foods, bring a lot of Alka-Seltzer because they have a lot of hot and spicy stuff. You want to try it all. They have the Trinidad doubles, the shark and bait, the roti, the corn soup, and so much other.
The Trinidad doubles and the roti. We haven't defined those yet.
Yeah, the Trinidad doubles is a breakfast item. I didn't get a chance to try it, but that's another one of their things.
Can you describe what doubles are? Or?
They told me, but I can't remember what it is. So because we didn't actually get to try it.
Yep.
Yeah, we're going to, but a lot of their stuff is very like even roti it's ROTI. It's almost like a sandwich with chickpeas and different spices and sauces, and they have chicken in it or different kinds of meats. And we did try that, and that was delicious.
Okay.
But like I said, you just don't see these anywhere else. And the names are funny because I did have somebody on Twitter say, JD, make sure you try the Trinidad doubles. And of course, I thought drinks. I'm like, oh, they have drinks, the doubles? But no, it's a breakfast item.
It is apparently a common street food made with two flat fried breads called bara with curried chickpeas or garbanzo beans.
There you go. They love their chickpeas.
Usually eaten for breakfast, but sometimes lunch. Yeah. All right, then.
And I don't know why, it just didn't sound appealing to breakfast. It seems like a lot of carbs in there.
Okay. Last two questions. Finish this sentence for me. You really know you're in Trinidad when what?
You really know you're in Trinidad when your mouth is on fire from eating too much hot stuff. Or your eyes are trying to squint because you're trying to see that wonderful costume on the on the girls at Carnival.
Okay. And if you had to summarize Trinidad and Tobago in 3 words, what 3 words would you use?
History.
Okay.
Surprising. And interesting.
Okay. And JD, where can people read more about, or in your case, view more about your travels?
They can always check me out on earthexplorer.com. So it's Earth and then the letter X, Plorer. So Earth Explorer without the E in the middle. And you can check me out on Twitter, on Google+, Earth Explorer. And also I have a show. It's going to be a web-based show called Going Social TV, which is about travel and social media. And we're just starting up again to shoot next week. And we're going to be in Key West for a week shooting there. And look for a lot new episodes and a lot of interesting things going on there at goingsocial.tv, or you can just go to my website and they'll have links there. And if you have any suggestions on where to go and what to do while we're in Key West, please let me know.
Excellent. JD, thanks for coming on the show and sharing with us your trip to Trinidad.
Thank you so much, Chris.
I guess I could have put this in the news segment, but I saved it instead for the community segment. I had some interesting news yesterday. The other travel show that I do, This Week in Travel, which we mentioned earlier in the show because JD is one of the guests who has been on that show. That show is a roundtable travel discussion with Gary Arndt from everything-everywhere.com, Jen Leo from the LA Times Travel, as well as me, and that show just won an award. It won an award from the North American Travel Journalists Association, and it won the gold medal in the broadcast category. So I'm insufferably pleased with that. I guess I am now officially an award-winning podcaster or an award-winning travel journalist, which I like the sound of even better. I'm not sure if you can save that up for valuable prizes or what the advantages of having an award, but by golly, I like the idea. While I was recording this, my wife just walked in the room and realized why we've just got a copy of Photos France 2012. Apparently, one of my photos has been used in their guidebook. And we're talking about a really small photo, but it's still kind of cool. On page 14 of that guidebook, if you look in the lower left-hand corner, there's a 1 inch by 1 inch picture of Cannes and the beach there on the French Riviera. And I took that photo. Hey, that's kind of cool too. And probably at this point, before my head gets too big to fit out the studio, I should bring this podcast to a close. If you have any questions, feel free to send an email to host@amateurtraveler.com or leave a comment on this episode at amateurtraveler.com. If you have any awards to send, you can send them to the same address. You can also follow me on Twitter at Chris2X. And as always, thanks so much for listening.